First contact folly. The Vexari Dominion had conquered 17 star systems, subjugated 32 sentient species, and maintained the most efficient military machine the galaxy had ever witnessed. Their success stemmed from a simple, elegant philosophy. Warfare was mathematics. Victory came from superior technology, tactical precision, and above all, recognizing the inevitable when faced with superior force. Admiral Zev Torax studied the holographic projection of the small blue-green planet rotating slowly before him, Earth. Such an unassuming name for a world that, according to preliminary scans, possessed valuable resources and a strategic position within this previously unexplored arm of the galaxy. Assessment, he commanded, his 6 eyes blinking independently in the Vexari expression of contemplation. Strategic analyst Nurivox stepped forward, her exoskeleton clicking softly against the polished floor of the command chamber. The inhabitants call themselves humans. Species classification: mammalian bipeds. Technological development estimated at pre-collective stage 3. Nuclear capabilities, but minimal interplanetary travel. Political structure: fragmented into approximately 200 sovereign territories with varying allegiances. Military assessment: Zev Torax's primary arms folded across his thorax while his secondary limbs tapped a complex rhythm against his command console. Primitive, Admiral. Projectile weapons, rudimentary energy systems, combustion-based aerial vehicles, and aquatic vessels using Arctic propulsion methods. Their most advanced weapons rely on nuclear fission, technology we neutralized 500 cycles ago. Psychological profile: Nerivox hesitated. Incomplete, Admiral. Our observation probes have collected limited data. They appear to be emotionally driven, with historical records showing frequent internal conflicts over resources, territory, and ideological differences. Zev Torax chittered softly, a sound equivalent to a human chuckle. So they fight among themselves, but have never faced a superior external threat. Predictable. What's your conquest recommendation? Standard Protocol 7. Orbital demonstration of force. Limited tactical strikes on military installations, followed by terms of surrender. Our simulations predict 94.3% probability of capitulation within 3 planetary rotations. The Admiral's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Prepare the fleet. I want a position above their northern hemisphere in 12 units. Ready a demonstration strike on an uninhabited area first. Something visually impressive, but causing minimal damage. We're cultivating new subjects, not destroying potential resources. As you command, Admiral. As the Vexari fleet emerged from hyperspace above Earth, humanity's primitive detection systems blared warnings across the planet. Panic ensued in some regions, while governments scrambled to understand the nature of the massive objects suddenly appearing in orbit. The Vexari, with clinical precision, selected their demonstration target, a remote island in the Pacific Ocean. A single energy pulse from the command ship vaporized the entire landmass, leaving a perfect circular void where it once stood. Minutes later, the Dominion broadcast their message across every communication frequency on the planet. A simple ultimatum demanding Earth's unconditional surrender within 72 hours, promising fair treatment under Vexari stewardship in exchange for compliance. Now we wait, Admiral Zev Torax announced to his command staff. Prepare integration protocols. I expect this will be one of our more straightforward acquisitions. 24 hours later, the Admiral received his first indication that the Vexari Dominion had made a catastrophic error in judgment. Admiral, Communication Officer Trelsax called, his voice vibrating with unusual frequencies that indicated confusion. We're receiving a response from the humans. Excellent. Transfer the surrender terms to. Sir, it's not a surrender. It appears to be a coordinated response from their combined military forces. Zev Torax's compound eyes dilated in surprise. Explain. The officer activated the main view screen, displaying hundreds of primitive human spacecraft lifting from various points across the planet's surface. Alongside these came thousands of missile launches, all targeting the Vexeri fleet. "They're attacking us." The Admiral's voice carried a note of genuine bewilderment. "With these toys." The first wave of human missiles detonated harmlessly against the Vexeri shields as expected. What wasn't expected was the second wave, which somehow carried modified warheads that created localized electromagnetic pulses specifically calibrated to the frequency of Vexeri shield technology. Technology humans shouldn't have been able to analyze in such a short time frame. "Impossible," muttered Tactical Officer Krendox. "They've adapted their weapons. But how? They've never encountered our technology before." The third wave carried nuclear payloads. While these two were insufficient to breach the Dominion's defenses, the audacity of the counterattack left the Vexeri command structure momentarily stunned. "They can't possibly believe they can win," Admiral Zev Torax said, more to himself than his officers. "This defies all logic. Send the second communication. Clarify that resistance is futile and will only result in unnecessary casualties." The humans' response came not in words but in actions. Within hours, every Vexeri scout ship sent to the surface was ambushed. Despite their technological inferiority, the humans employed unpredictable tactics. Kamikaze attacks, EMF jammers cobbled together from civilian technology, and in one particularly disturbing case, a scout vessel was captured by farmers using nothing more sophisticated than reinforced agricultural equipment. Admiral Zev Torax called an emergency council with his senior officers. "This situation has become irregular," he admitted, his exoskeleton rigid with tension. "These humans are not behaving according to any established conquest model." Science Officer Miralax cleared her throat tubes. "Admiral, I've been analyzing their communication patterns and historical records. I believe I've identified the anomaly in our approach." "Proceed." "Humans appear to operate on a fundamentally different psychological framework than any species we've encountered. When faced with overwhelming force, their response is not calculated surrender but emotional defiance. They don't assess based on probability of victory. They simply refuse to accept defeat as an option." The Admiral's secondary arms twitched with irritation. "That's irrational." "Yes, sir. That's precisely the point. Our entire tactical doctrine is based on the rational actor model. Humans, when threatened, become deeply irrational." Tactical Officer Krendox interjected. "Our latest intelligence indicates they're calling this Operation Eternal Storm. They've united their previously fractious military forces under a joint command structure in less than a planetary rotation, a political feat that our analysts deemed impossible based on their historical behavior." Zev Torax silently contemplated this information, all six of his eyes blinking in an asynchronous pattern that indicated deep distress in Vexeri body language. "We will proceed with limited orbital strikes on key military installations," he finally declared. "Once they witness the futility of resistance against our superior firepower, rational thought will prevail." The Vexeri precision strikes targeted military bases across Earth. The humans responded not with surrender but with a planet-wide mobilization that defied comprehension. Civilian infrastructure was rapidly converted to military production. Retired soldiers returned to service. Children manufactured improvised explosives in school gymnasiums. Scientists worked around the clock analyzing debris from damaged Vexeri ships to reverse engineer their technology. Each time the Vexeri escalated, humanity escalated in return. The humans showed no breaking point, no threshold of casualties or destruction that would compel them to accept the mathematical certainty of their defeat. "Admiral," Science Officer Miralax reported after 2 weeks of increasingly desperate conflict, "I've isolated a cultural phenomenon that may explain their behavior. Humans have a concept they call fighting spirit that transcends rational self-preservation. Their historical records are filled with examples of drastically outnumbered forces continuing resistance despite certain defeat." "That's suicide," Zev Torax responded, his voice hollow. "No, sir. That's the critical distinction. They don't see it as suicide. They see it as noble sacrifice, And more importantly, they believe that such resistance can eventually succeed against all odds. Their cultural narratives repeatedly reinforce this belief through stories of underdogs triumphing over superior forces. The Admiral's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of severe agitation. Are you suggesting that an entire species has evolutionary psychology that prevents them from recognizing when they're beaten? Precisely, Admiral. And there's more. They appear to become more resourceful, more united, and more dangerous the more we press them. It's as if conflict itself enhances their capabilities rather than diminishing them. As if to punctuate this assessment, alarms blared throughout the command ship. A swarm of human spacecraft, crewed by Vexari standards, but now equipped with salvaged Dominion technology, had breached the outer defense perimeter. Human soldiers in hastily modified environmental suits were attempting to board Vexari vessels. Admiral Zevtorax watched in disbelief as the humans, against all reason and probability, continued their relentless assault. They didn't fight like a species defending territory. They fought like a species with absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain, as if defeat wasn't just undesirable, but fundamentally impossible to accept. They don't have an off switch, he murmured, the Vexari idiom inadequately capturing his dawning horror. They just keep coming. The unstoppable force. 3 standard months into what was supposed to be a routine conquest, the Vexari Dominion faced an unprecedented crisis. Admiral Zevtorax's fleet had lost 17 vessels, not to superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but to the relentless, adaptable, and utterly unpredictable fighting methods of humanity. They're learning too quickly, Tactical Officer Krendox reported during the daily assessment meeting, his exoskeleton bearing fresh scars from a recent human boarding attempt. They've already reverse-engineered components of our shield technology and propulsion systems. At this rate of adaptation, they'll be deploying weapons based on our own designs within weeks. Science Officer Miralax, who had been tasked with developing a comprehensive psychological profile of humanity, displayed a series of human propaganda images on the command center's main screen. These are being distributed across their global communication network, she explained. They depict Vexari soldiers being defeated by humans using improvised weapons. Note the emotional resonance these images are designed to evoke. Pride, determination, unity. They're not hiding casualty figures or the technological gap between our civilizations. They're celebrating their losses as noble sacrifices and highlighting every minor victory as proof of eventual triumph. Admiral Zevtorax studied the images, his compound eyes reflecting the flickering displays. One image particularly disturbed him, a human child standing defiantly on the smoking wreckage of a Vexari scout ship, waving what appeared to be a territorial flag. They're indoctrinating their young to continue the fight, he observed. They're preparing for a multi-generational conflict if necessary. Precisely, Admiral. Miralax continued. And there's more. They've developed a combat philosophy they call adaptive asymmetric warfare. Instead of attempting to match our technological advantage, they're exploiting weaknesses we didn't even realize we had. The science officer played footage from a recent engagement where humans had used the Vexari's own precision against them. By studying attack patterns, they had identified the exact algorithmic responses programmed into Dominion defense systems and created decoys specifically designed to trigger those responses, drawing fire away from their actual assault teams. They don't fight like any species we've cataloged, Krendox added. They combine strategies in ways that defy tactical logic. During yesterday's engagement in their Australia region, they used centuries-old propeller aircraft as delivery systems for modern electronic warfare equipment. Our targeting systems were programmed to prioritize threats based on technological sophistication and completely overlooked these hybrid weapons. Admiral Zevtorax's mandibles clicked in agitation. What does High Command recommend? Surely they've encountered similar resistance in previous conquests. Communication Officer Trelsax shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, High Command has no precedent for this situation. They've authorized the deployment of catastrophic weapons if you deem it necessary. The command center fell silent. Catastrophic weapons, planet killers, were considered a last resort, used only when a species was deemed too dangerous to assimilate and too valuable to leave as potential future adversaries. That would be inefficient, the Admiral finally replied, using the gravest criticism possible in Vexari culture. We came for resources and strategic position, not an empty victory. There may be another approach, Miralax suggested tentatively. My research into human psychology indicates they respond strongly to direct, personal confrontation. They value what they call honor in combat, facing one's opponent directly rather than attacking from a distance. You're suggesting we engage in primitive physical combat. Krendox's voice vibrated with disbelief. I'm suggesting we challenge them on terms that align with their psychological framework, Miralax clarified. A demonstration of our willingness to engage according to their cultural values might open diplomatic channels that our standard protocols have failed to establish. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms blared throughout the command ship. Tactical displays lit up with warnings as a massive coordinated attack launched from Earth's surface. They've breached our orbital defense grid, Krendox announced, their voice rising with an emotion no Vexari would admit was fear. Multiple human vessels approaching using. Admiral, they're using our own propulsion signatures. They've copied our engine configurations to confuse our identification systems. Zevtorax watched in stunned silence as the humans executed a maneuver his strategists had deemed impossible given their technological limitations. The attackers had synchronized their assault perfectly, creating blind spots in the Vexari defense network by exploiting the precise timing of automated response systems. How did they calculate the algorithms? He demanded. Those are military secrets encrypted beyond their computational capabilities. Sir, a junior officer reported, intelligence suggests they didn't calculate them. They observed patterns in our responses and guessed. They call it intuition. Another alarm sounded. Proximity warning. A human vessel had somehow managed to approach the command ship undetected and was now broadcasting on all frequencies. This is General Helena Reyes of the United Earth Defense Force, came a calm, steady voice, translated through Vexari communication systems. I am addressing Admiral Zevtorax directly. The Admiral hesitated, then signaled for an open channel. This is Admiral Zevtorax. You have committed multiple violations of Dominion conquest protocols. Surrender your vessel immediately. A sound came through the communication system that the translation software couldn't interpret. After a moment, the Vexari realized it was human laughter. Admiral, General Reyes replied. I think we're well past protocol at this point. I'm approaching under temporary ceasefire to deliver a message from Earth's unified government. We've studied your technology, your tactics, and most importantly, your behavior. We understand now that the Vexari operate on principles of efficiency and mathematical certainty. This is correct, Zevtorax confirmed, uncertain where this conversation was heading. Then let me offer you some calculations of our own. In 3 months, you've lost 17 ships and over 2,000 personnel. We've lost millions of lives, but our production capacity and recruitment rates have actually increased. Our scientists estimate that within 6 months, we'll have fully reverse-engineered your primary weapon systems. Within a year, we'll have ships that can match yours in combat capability. The Admiral's exoskeleton stiffened. The human wasn't exaggerating. Their rate of technological adaptation was unprecedented. Even if you deploy your planet killers, Rice continued as if reading his thoughts, you should know that we've already established colonies on Mars and several moons in our system. We've also launched 30 generation ships to nearby star systems in the past month alone. Kill Earth, and you've only ensured that humanity will dedicate itself to the eventual destruction of the Vexari Dominion for all time. For the first time in his distinguished military career, Admiral Zevtorax felt something that Vexari culture had no direct translation for. A human might have called it existential dread. "What do you propose?" he asked finally. "A new approach," Rise replied. "Not surrender, not yours or ours. Coexistence, trade, cultural exchange. We have qualities your empire values. Adaptability, innovation, psychological resilience. You have knowledge and technology we desire. We're not asking you to leave our system. We're inviting you to stay, but as partners rather than conquerors." The proposal was so far outside standard Dominion protocols that Zev Torax had no immediate reference point for evaluation. And yet, the cold mathematics of the situation were undeniable. The cost of subduing humanity, if it was even possible, would far outweigh any benefit the Dominion might extract from Earth. "I will consult with High Command," he finally responded. "Of course," Rise acknowledged. "But understand this, Admiral. Whether you decide to continue this war or explore peaceful coexistence, humanity will survive. We don't have an off switch. We never have." After the human vessel withdrew to a safe distance, Admiral Zev Torax convened his senior officers for the most difficult strategic assessment of their careers. "The humans have demonstrated qualities that defy our conquest models," he began. "They do not recognize inevitable defeat. They adapt at rates that violate our predictive algorithms. Their psychological response to existential threat enhances rather than diminishes their fighting capability." Science Officer Miralax displayed her final analysis on the central screen. "Admiral, having studied human history extensively, I believe I understand the fundamental difference between our species. The Vexari evolved through careful selection of the most efficient approach, optimizing for guaranteed success with minimal resource expenditure. Humans evolved through constant crisis and competition, optimizing not for efficiency, but for survival at any cost." Tactical Officer Krendox, who had lost both a limb and a clutch sibling to human attacks, added reluctantly, "Their inferior technology should have made this conquest simple, but their tenacity compensates in ways our models fail to predict. They don't fight according to optimization principles. They simply refuse to stop fighting, regardless of cost or probability of success." After hours of debate and analysis, Admiral Zev Torax reached a conclusion that would forever change the Vexari Dominion's approach to galactic conquest. His communication to High Command was brief but historic. "Humanity possesses a unique and valuable trait we have labeled combat persistence beyond rational threshold. They are, in essence, a species without an off switch in conflict situations. I recommend immediate reclassification from conquest target to potential strategic ally." Full report to follow. As the Vexari fleet repositioned into a non-threatening orbital formation, humans around the world celebrated not a victory, but a revelation that would echo across the stars. In a galaxy of countless species and civilizations, humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute, irrational refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat was a mathematical certainty. The aliens had finally discovered that humans don't have a goddamn off switch during combat. And that revelation changed everything.